You are now plugged in to Thinkering Media, where we are transforming the future of humanizing education. This is a place for thinkering minds.
Okay, as an educator, that would have made my year. Like, I had two kids almost get into a fist fight debating the topic I brought into class.
Let's crush it.
I'm so good.
Good morning, thinkers. Good morning, dreamers. Good morning, builders. Welcome to Thinkering Minds.
Thinkering minds, your ideas ignite. Thinkering minds like the sparks take flight. The morning thinkers, the future's alive. Thinkering minds where ideas rise. The morning thinkers, welcome inside. Thinkering minds keep the spark alive.
Good morning, builders. Welcome to Thinkering Minds.
Welcome to this special AMA edition of Thinkering Minds. Today's guest with us is described as a walking reminder that kindness is not just a character trait. It can be a movement that goes outside of us as individuals and out into the world. We're joined by Dr. Christopher Culver, better known as Dr. Kindness or the Kindness King, founder of Orange Sparrow, on the Kindness Tour coming to a city near you right now. He's imagining how schools and communities can live and learn together, thriving all around kindness and community. Dr. Culver, you can probably do a better job introducing yourself than I did, so I'll let you take it from there.
No, I really appreciate the introduction. You're exactly that. The science of kindness is profound, and I think about the impact it had on my life. I vulnerably share that I was raised in a divorced family. My parents separated when I was 6, so I split time between North Carolina and Oklahoma, and specifically grew up on a 300-acre farm on the weekends and during Tulsa during the week. And so as humans, we're wired to belong, wanting to know that we're seen, heard, valued, and respected for who we are. And I can tell you in those young ages, I didn't recognize that, but I was seeking belonging. And I was struggling with that. I was picked on and bullied as a kid in middle school and high school. And I don't share that for sympathy. I share that for solidarity. So many people may have navigated that or supported a child through that, or maybe navigating it now, right? I know there's a lot of adults who set in positions that have big titles that sometimes are still that middle school kid at heart. So vulnerably, I worked with a principal who was exactly that. And so it led to the lowest point in my life where I had to call the employee assistance helpline and seek the free therapy sessions. And for so long, I was ashamed that I had to do those things. But what I recognized is that's where I found kindness for myself and for others. And we are so wired to want to control folks. We can't control anyone but ourselves. And so in that moment, through that journey, I realized I can control my thoughts, my actions, my perceptions, and the perceived outcomes. And so I served as an educator for many years. And in 2023, 24, somewhere in there, it's been a year going into my second year. I've been on the Kindness Tour where I'm helping organizations, businesses, nonprofit students, no matter what it may be, understand that kindness isn't one more thing. It is the thing. And it's the solution that so many spaces need. And the KPI indicators and the outcomes that are aligned to kindness are just profound. So thank you for having me. I love the Dr. Kindness and Kindness King introduction. That's awesome. Comes from TikTok a little bit, and a new thing I saw on Instagram this week. So I love the plug there. Thank you.
Yeah. Every time I see new nicknames, I'm just going to add them to the list, and we'll keep it rolling. And pretty soon, your introductions are going to be like, Dr. Chris Culver, and it's like very regal and like 16th century, like a king coming into the room. It's going to be nice. Very Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the great curls and all, right?
Exactly. So starting off, what drew you into education?
So I knew that I was going to be a teacher from when I was a young kid. There's pictures that I share throughout my workshops and keynotes that I have sitting at a desk, and I think when I was like 8 or 9 with a nameplate. And my dad still tells the story that my 10th birthday was in Office Depot. And so he laughs because when other individuals were getting toys and baseballs and all that, I was getting pointers and globes because that's what excited me. And so I think back to my high school, middle school years, and it really were teachers that saved my life and helped me find hope and to learn to dream again, right? In some really dark, despaired times. And my mom and my stepdad discouraged me from being a teacher for the exact reasons we've all heard before. You'll be broke, you'll be homeless, you're not gonna have any of the things, right? And so I started down a path as a business major. I'll be totally vulnerable and share that, but I couldn't do it. I didn't understand macroeconomics, like statistics, all those things. And so I dropped out 3 times. I was so committed to try to do what my parents wanted me to do that I kept going, but I dropped out. And on the 4th try, I re-enrolled in school and I started as an English education major. And I'm not saying saying it was any easier, but I definitely felt like it was more in alignment to my purpose. And so I think when I'm always asked that question, I'm like, I think I knew from an early age I was going to be a teacher. I tried to derail the plans, and then it always came back to it. I even left the profession for a year and came back and was like, no, this is where I'm meant to be.
That's perfect. It's for me, I also found like solace in like really good educators. Instead of half the time, instead of going to the cafeteria and eating, I would go to the classroom and like hang out with them. One, it was kind of more stimulating. Instead of just chucking food across the table at a friend, I could like, get some insight and actually learn about something else I was interested in. And then there's just so many times where just too much was going on and just escaping and finding that one person was like, yeah, go sit on my couch and find 10 minutes of silence for yourself. It's just like, oh, that's a life savings. Becoming that person for others. Yeah, you might be broken homeless. You can instill kindness and you can actually, have a real effect on people that a lot of careers miss out on sitting behind a desk. So you had to start an education. What was the kind of 2 a.m. moment where you realized that you had to step outside and to kind of innovate for yourself and build Orange Sparrow?
So as I shared, I worked with that's a really good question. As I'm responding and processing at the same time, that's a really great question. As I was working as a middle school assistant principal, I had a principal who was really toxic, super, super toxic. And we were a large staff. There were 5 leaders. There were 4 assistant principals and the principal. And I remember we were all waving the white flag to central office, like, help, like it is really bad over here. And that's really where I mean, that is where I went to therapy and that moving piece. And so not only that, but that was the start of my dissertation journey. I said to myself, this is not making sense. There's no way people get master's degrees to be leaders and then we work in a culture like this. Like this has to be opposite of what research says. So I saw it as an opportunity to dive into learning, and it was amidst the pandemic. And so my partner and I were like, we're bored. So we decided to go do the doctoral research, which was great. And I was specific to make sure that I stayed at the middle level because that's where I was serving. And so I researched culture, motivation, climate, and employee retention. So I had an opportunity to serve at the district level for the past 2 or 3 years. And what happened is the culture shifted to that toxic culture again. And I was like, you know what? This is a repeating pattern. And what's so sad is as I travel, which I'm super grateful to connect with schools and communities literally to travel and get to connect with people is amazing. But as I travel, so many folks are navigating cultures that are just as destructive as the ones that I navigated or worse. And so when I think about Orange Sparrow, initially I had called it the back to school tour, right? It's back to school. But what happened is other spaces were reaching out to me. It wasn't just schools. And so that's why I branded it the kindness tour, is because it really does help everyone. So I think about that moment, that 2 a.m. moment, it was in March, to be honest. And I didn't know what my plan was, but I had submitted my resignation and said my last day will be June 30th. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. In July 1, I went all in on Orange Sparrow, and it's been a wild ride since, but it really is focused on helping people understand that kindness is great for ourselves and for the world around us.
That's amazing. Let's name names and districts. No, I'm just playing.
I'm like,
but I
we're
love it.
burning this place down.
I love that you call it service, though, because that's what it is when you speak about it. You're serving when you're in those kinds of roles, and too many people step into it and turn it into a career or a job. And it's the same thing with any like government kind of thing. If you're working from a point of view of service, you're going to help people. But when you're looking at a point of view of it's 9 to 5 and I deserve to get paid X and Y and blah, 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 that's the focus. You're always going to miss the point. So I love that. So educator to innovator, leap from classroom teacher to movement builder. What's the biggest hurdle you've encountered so far?
Ooh, imposter syndrome for sure. I think.
Gosh, yeah.
I mean, being totally vulnerable, right? I think when you step out and you know for certain what kind of to do, or you're learning in the space of being an educator as a teacher or as a principal or central office employee, there are guardrails. You kind of know what the day-to-day is going to look like, right? When you step out onto, as we call an edupreneur or entrepreneur or innovator, I'll take that. It's no whole bar, and you're on 24/7, and I'm like, who wants to see what I have to say? And so I'll be honest, for the first couple months, I was putting out content, but struggling internally. Nobody cares. But what's interesting is when I stopped, people would reach out and say, wait a minute, where's the video? Where's this? And I think that was the affirmation that I needed. Not that I needed someone's validation, if you will, but just kind of like the words of encouragement that we often give to other people, but we don't give to ourselves. I needed to apply that to myself. And so that was the biggest hurdle, is to get out of my own head, get out of my own way, do it scared, doing your voice shakes, just do the dang thing. And so that's been my mantra from going TikTok live to doing the kindness tour or whatever. It's just leaning through each experience, saying yes, and walking through fear with kindness.
Yeah, do it scared, do it when your voice shakes. You've said that before, and I love that. I remember that from one of your videos, and it's stuck with me. When you said it, I was like, oh, where do I know that from? And I was like, oh, from one of your videos. Yeah. And it sounds like it would be a really, really good like summer pop song as well. Like, do it
I like
scared,
that.
do it when your voice shakes. Yeah.
Maybe Pete Swift can pick it up for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe we'll start Orange Sparrow and the Thinkerers band at some
I like
point.
it. I like it.
Yeah. So why Orange Sparrow? What does that mean to you?
So orange is my favorite color. I've always loved the color, but it also tells us to be bold and audacious in our endeavors. And a sparrow keeps us humble and honest in our approach, with integrity as the through line. And so when you think about being bold, being audacious, but also being humble, of service, with that through line of kindness and humility. And so it just came together. And my mantra is, if you can't find the light, be the light. And it all kind of came together one evening sitting on the back patio. And I was like, this is it. And I don't know what this it is, but here we go.
Yeah, find the light and be the light. I like that in the brand. And going back, let's be the light for yourself. As an educator, a student comes to you and they say, hey, I'm got this great idea. I believe in myself, but I'm having imposter syndrome and I'm doubting myself. What are you going to say to them to be the light?
Yeah, affirm them, right? Let them know the gifts and the value they bring to this space, but also help them work through, listen to them, and be vulnerable and share back when a time you navigated that. I think so often our young folks don't think that adults or teachers specifically are even human. When they see us at the grocery store, they always freak out, like, what? You're at the grocery store? I'm like, yes, we too go do the thing, right? But when they tell us something of such nature, that means they trust us and they want to foster that relationship with us, to be so vulnerable, to say, I have this idea, but I'm scared to do whatever. So I think it's really powerful, not only when we listen to them and affirm the value they bring to the space, but when we can tell our own story and say, hey, it's not the same, but I remember this time when I navigated such and such and such, right? And the kid may hold on to that and say, okay, that may be their driving force. You never know what it may be, but I say pause, listen, connect. I love it.
Pause, listen, connect. You're just able to like throw these things out. It's great.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. No slideshow needed.
That's right.
So the one trend that I see going around constantly on social media is one of kind of playful division. And it's in this, let's talk about boomers this way. Let's talk about Gen X this way. Let's talk about Gen Z and Gen Alpha and missing millennials, I guess. And I'm from that weird generation that can claim Gen X and millennial, like 1984. What am I? There's all this division in social media right now, and it's kind of playful. But it's still division. One, how does kindness conquer that? And then two, as the person who's understanding this new generation and trying to really grasp what they're having to say and making them feel heard and understood, what is it that they're saying? So one, how does kindness bridge the generational divide that we're seeing? And then two, what does this new generation have to say that we're not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was
A
meeting with
complicated two-parter, sorry.
Yeah, it's an A and a B. I like it. I was meeting with some Gen Z researchers yesterday who are Gen Z themselves, and I was popping off some of the research just to say, hey, is this true? Right? Like, this is what I'm reading. I want affirmation that this is true. And they're like, absolutely. Like, this is totally true. And so it was affirming in that space to know that 7 out of 10 Americans, 70% of adults today are living in a chronic state of stress or stressed out, right? So kindness is the catalyst to change there. It's releasing the other chemicals in our brain that are going to give us a love hormone, are going to calm us down, provide that serotonin, oxytocin, right? Those feel-good chemicals. So that's the start. I think the other piece is, yes, it's playful on social media right now, but it's also spiraling into the workforce. We're seeing it happen with veteran teachers and new teachers. We're seeing it with a lot of Gen X are now in leadership. You have millennials who are probably in that entry leadership and Gen Z are like in the workforce. But when you think about it, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective, but when you think about it from a lens of you can use social media and your iPhone now to monetize and not needing to go necessarily to the workspace to do those things, that's a mindset shift for some of our generations before Gen Z and Gen Alpha, including myself. And I say that because I didn't understand how they were getting paid. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I want to learn why, how, all the things. But as I was talking to my father-in-law who passed away in May, he was born in 1932. He was like, there's no way like this was even happening in my time era, right? He could not process these things. And so what I think we have to be mindful is each of us brings strengths to the space. Each of us have stories, experiences that Gen Z need, Gen Z and Gen Alpha need, and soon Gen Beta. They're all going to be amongst us. They are amongst us in the workforce. They are amongst us in society. They're not going anywhere. They're not going away. And so I think it lends back to that piece of empathy, seeking to understand, asking questions, and assuming positive intent. That's one of the things the two individuals I met with yesterday, they literally echoed. They said, we want to be heard, seen, and valued. We bring different ideas. We bring different strategy. And I'll share, my partner has launched a campaign for lieutenant governor for our state. And one of the things that's been really important to come out is all these young folks, Gen Z, saying, we'll help with social media. We'll help with TikTok. And when you think about the other side, the older generation, that's not necessarily where they go. They're thinking about mailers and walk cards and just a different approach. It's just generationally different, not right or wrong, but we have to seek to understand. So the Gen Z and Gen Alpha are telling us that we have to lean into a new way of technology, a new way of thinking, a new way of connection. And sometimes it starts with us. That's why I say be the light. If we can't connect with a Gen Z or Gen Alpha, we can go take the approach to understand, to ask those questions, to assume positive intent.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. At Thinkering, we're all about humanizing learning, and it ties right into exactly what you're doing. Kindness, as a value proposition is interesting, but how does it shape the design of learning?
Well, we know that in order to learn, we have to trust and we have to have safety needs met. We have to Maslow before we bloom, if you've heard that saying in education before. So we know that we have to have our foundational needs met before we can have any kind of learning at any top tier. So Dr. Kelly Harding wrote a book called The Rabbit Effect, The Science of Kindness, where she researched the impact of kindness through literally rabbits. And one of the things that she made comment of was that if you know 6 of your neighbors in your neighborhood, you're more likely to feel safe and connected in your space. So when you take that same philosophy or understanding and you apply it to a classroom, if I know 6 of my classmates or 6 of my colleagues or 6 of whomever, I'm more likely to feel connected to school or that classroom, to feel safe enough to trust and to learn. So when we treat people the way we want to be treated, we are intentional with our connection. And to be honest, the statistics are really alarming around today's youth and connection. 1 in 5 kids say they don't have friends. 1 in 10 adults say they're lonely. 50% of adolescents say they're lonely. I mean, those are really alarming statistics. And then to understand through the research that this level of loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, it's not that they're going to have smoke cancer, right? That's not what it's saying. It's the same health implications that you're going to receive because of it. So if we can create that space where we're kind to one another, we set that community, we're listening to understand, we're building that connection, I think people are going to feel like they really do have relationships, they can trust their classmates, and they can be all into learning. But until then, their guards are up. Social media has taught us to keep our guards up. It's constant comparison, constant cutoff culture. And I think it's a unique opportunity to shift our classrooms from spaces of just sitting it, but really learning, connection, and innovation.
That's great. How do you take it beyond the classroom and make it sticky, like sticky kindness? I guess honey.
Yeah, I think there's ways in which you can offer all kinds of challenges. One of the things that I talk about is a gratitude jar. I think when we can focus on the things that we do have rather than we don't have, it allows us to shape our perspective and our mindset. I'm not saying every day won't be a fantastic day, but there is something great in every single day. And so one of the strategies I share is at the end of each day, whether it's in the class period, end of the day, end of the school, however you structure it, just putting great things in that jar so you can always go back to it. I also talk about a graffiti wall where you just put literally butcher paper up on the wall and kids can write it. And I don't know if you saw it on social media, but there were 2 schools who texted me last week and they said, we started the graffiti wall and it's been awesome. I have resources on my website. One of them is the Be Kind to Humankind Week, which is this week. And there are schools who have across their campus and are using social media to plug it. So I think there's ways in which we can challenge kids. Kindness is free, doesn't cost anything. It's not a personality trait. It is a choice you make every single day. So I think if we're talking about the importance of holding the door for someone, smiling at a stranger, giving a compliment, then we are the start of the ripple that our young people are going to see.
So how do we scale it out? How do we scale that ripple?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it starts with us, right? Like we have to
Yeah.
be the one. And so the research share, and this is really cool. This is what I really love is if you smile at someone for 7 seconds, including yourself in the mirror, you're rewiring your brain, right? And so this is an activity I'll do during the workshop so people can see, because what happens is if you were to smile at me and my face was blank, I'm going to end up laughing and smiling because that's how contagious our smiles are. That's how contagious our energy is. So if we're putting that out there, that's going to be really positive. But in addition, your energy has the ability to impact your friends' friends, which if you look at that, it's 1,000 people a day, 1,000 folks. So if you're impacting 1,000 folks and I'm impacting 1,000 folks just by choosing the choices that we make rooted in kindness, that ripple is profound. And so I think about that's how we expand it outside of our classrooms and our schools to really make that a worldwide day, which I would love to see all the kindness come rampant on World Kindness Day in November.
That's awesome. The one of our partners, Narrative 4, has a cool exchange they do where they work to help participants tell each other's story from the first person perspective. So, I would say, hi, I'm Dr. Chris Culver, and tell your story. So it puts me in a position of having to really hear empathetically because I don't want to misrepresent you, but then also step into your shoes and, tell it honestly and do it justice. There's something to that, getting to know the human being. Then you're surrounded by those 6 people that you know and trust and you feel heard and loved by. The smiles happening with those 6 people every day, and then the other people you meet, and it's just beautiful ripple effect. I like it. So what do we do? So what do we do with the skeptics who don't get it, who just see kindness as I guess like a fluff word that you'd throw into like an idea cloud or something?
Yeah. Or the one I've been hearing, like, yeah, kindness is delusional. So I've assured this is kindness is not delulu, right? There's actual research that says that. I believe that strong people choose kindness because it takes courage and heart. It's not choosing kindness when it's easy. It's choosing kindness when it's hard. And I think life is lifing for a lot of folks across the globe, locally, wherever you may be, right? And I think that's where it goes back to that choice of kindness. Because listen, sometimes the folks who need kindness the most show us in the most unkind ways. And it's easy to succumb to that negativity or go down that pathway of, and I'm guilty of it, right? I've done it recently and I've had to check myself and even say, whoa, like that was super unkind. Here's why I think I responded that way. I apologize. And I think sometimes that sorry, we've moved past it. So many kids don't even say it. Adults don't say it. But that piece of saying those 2 words, I'm sorry, increases connection by 422%. So I think about that, the power of just being human, being mindful, being empathetic. And I love that activity that you shared of the first person. Who did you say does that? That's amazing.
Narrative 4, I'll introduce you to them. They're great thinkering partners, and it's a cool idea to just really get to know the other person. I got to watch people go through it and didn't get to participate because there was a uneven number of people. So I was the odd man out, but I got to watch people participate, and it was really cool seeing, the room of people, another icebreaker, whatever, and then coming back and they're just like full on grin telling you about this person they just met, 60 seconds ago, but they're telling it like they've known them their whole life. And it is like really cool to watch.
It's cool.
Yeah. One of the things that you're talking about kind of remind me, I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's like the Hawaiian technique of Huapono Panono, or I was saying it wrong, but it involves like repeating 4 phrases like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. And if you can go through that process of like forgive yourself and then ask for forgiveness and then thank that person for the graciousness and just being them. And then I love you. There's nothing, that kind of kindness cycle can't really conquer. I think it's beautiful.
Absolutely. And I think oftentimes we're so willing to give kindness to other folks, but we don't give the same kindness and grace to ourselves. So I always say, if you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself, right? You're worthy of the same love and light for giving yourself and walking through that grace. So I love the technique you shared there, and the research supports that, right? It's 3 positive experiences to counteract a negative experience, whether it's compliments, that word, I love you, forgiving yourself, all of that's part of it. And those are all aspects of kindness.
Yeah. And Bruce Lee would always say that he didn't allow himself to ever do self-talk because his body and the cells, you just don't understand sarcasm and don't understand intent and context. And he'd say you see and you witness, plants responding to positive music or positive talk versus negative music, negative talk. And then even water, when you play positive vibration, forms in these beautiful geometric patterns And then when you play these like negative vibration, it just distorts and creates this chaos. And as he was saying, if we're 70% water and, the earth is 70% water, and we're all just rolling around, vibrating in these big tuning forks, the most important thing we can do is be positive, because what we're putting out is gonna resonate. And then when I started thinking about that, that's when I realized, good vibes, bad vibes, that's what it means. Like it's literally just being that tuning fork so that someone else can tune in and resonate with, your good vibration. And once I connected all that, I was like, oh, I gotta stop being such a jerk all the time.
It's real though. I think that's the part that like we're all going through it. And it's about being 1% better to today than you were yesterday, or being 1% better tomorrow than you were today. It's not big grandiose things. I think so many people are like, oh, I have to go lead the kindness charge for my community. I'm like, no, you work on yourself, right? So when that negative thought comes, when that bad experience comes, you choose a different path for yourself. Is it easy? No, it is really hard, and it's constant work in progress. And like I said, I struggled last week. But then in addition, I had a really bad experience where I missed a flight, ended up in another city, stayed the night in some other city that wasn't on my itinerary. My luggage was 2,400 miles. I was like, what is happening? And then the airline wasn't going to work with me. So I looked at the lady. I was like, I'm a kindness researcher and advocate. I got to stop away for just a second. I'll be right back. Let me breathe. Right. But otherwise, I was going to lose my marbles because I was so frustrated. It was 2 a.m, like all these other things that I couldn't control. And I can only control myself. Was I perfect in that moment? No. But I was trying to be kind and treat her the way she'd want to be treated, because it wasn't her fault. It was weather related, all these moving pieces. Again, we can't control other people and their actions, only ourselves. So I was trying to remind myself that the entire time, but it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it seems like it's my first Midwest experience. I'm in Kentucky. I don't know if this counts as Midwest, but all of our flights are getting canceled left and right nonstop.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or delayed, the worst.
yeah, it's bad. We'll move into the community questions now. I did want to touch on one of the things that, you mentioned at the very, very beginning, the imposter syndrome hurdle. Have you found that the use of AI has helped you with that at all?
I think it has helped. I think staying grounded in strategies that are applicable have helped as well, right? So taking time to, there's research, writing affirmations for ourselves and what it does to our brain, taking 60 seconds just to breathe, to take that 6-second pause before we respond, but then using AI as a thought partner, right? I, as you shared, use it a lot to upload things, to say, I created this, give me feedback, rip it apart. Where is it working? Where does it not work? And so I think as a edupreneur, innovator, whatever the slang, we want to use, it is great to have that thought partner, because oftentimes you're working in silos or isolation, which only that imposter syndrome. So it is nice to have that connection or that support. And then it's really cool. And it's like, this is awesome. I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel great about this, right? Like I feel good.
Yeah, that's what I like, is I constantly battle the imposter syndrome, because with everything that I do, it's always been self-taught, a need from a client or stepping into a role that needed to be filled. And I was the only person who'd be like, yeah, I'll take it on. So it's just always self-taught. And somebody's like, oh, develop a marketing strategy. Like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then after years of doing it, I'm finally able to go to AI and be like, hey, is this even good? Is it on par with what other professionals are doing? It's like, oh yeah, this is great. You're solid. This is really insightful. I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, nice. I'm not crazy. I'm on point. We'll dive into the community questions here. I think I have I think 7 or 8 of them. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So this is from an educator, so educator perspective. So it's always one more thing in the classroom. How can I integrate kindness and practices into the daily teaching that the kids can practice without it being just one more thing?
Yeah, so I think the research is really clear around today's learners. They are constantly wired to be going from sun up to sundown. They are not reflective in their nature. Think about how many times we look around, they're consuming content on social media. Our brains are not wired for that. They're not wired to consume the amount of information we're consuming. And so I still serve at the university level working with undergraduate and graduate students. I love it. It puts me back into the purpose of why I got into education in the first place. And so what I think we have to realize post-pandemic is we've shifted a lot of the things that we used to teach earlier years have now been delayed. For example, time management probably used to be taught in late elementary, early middle school, and now we're still teaching time management in college, right? So just trying to give perspective. One of the things that I found successful is every startup start a class, we focus what are 3 good things right now, and then I share the 4th. And it could be anything personal or professional, but it just allows us all to focus on what are great. It can literally be the sun is shining. Like it can just be anything that is great. And what's interesting is whenever I missed it for 1 week because I was in a hurry, I was late, traffic, all the things, and I was like, we're going to skip gratitude. I remember a student raising her hand and she said, Dr. Culver, we can't start. We haven't done our 3 gratitude to get started. So it was that accountability piece for me. The other thing is we never know what students are going through before they come to our classroom or when they leave our classroom. And so what we can do is we can take 60 seconds to help them just be still, to be quiet, to breathe for a second, because that gives everyone a fair opportunity to be regulated, to be competent and confident in what they can do and bring to the space. And I think the last thing that I always say is rows were created in classrooms in the 1960s for janitors to clean classrooms. There's no research to improve academic outcomes. So if we can shift to those collaborative groups and get kids talking to one another while doing these intentional shifts that we're leading as the educator, that's how we embed kindness. It's not the rainbows or the butterflies or all that. It's those small intentional efforts we can make to help kids reflect, find gratitude, find things that are going well, but also foster connection and relationships rooted in trust.
I did not know that about the rose. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. I want to watch like a documentary on that now. From a district leader, how does professional development and kindness look at scale?
I think that's up to the individual district. So I have
Yeah,
done.
there's like a part B. How do we make it stick beyond a single workshop or PD day?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I was going to say it can be a full day PD day, it can be a workshop, it can be any of those things, but it has to be that collective buy-in. So in my experience, when I walk through the science of kindness, I'm giving insights to today's learners, what's going on with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, how did we get here, and how can we respond, much like the first question asked. So it's not one more thing, right? It's the through line of how we do these things. What's going to happen then at that point, and by the end of it, we have to have a commitment that everyone's all in. And I don't know if you see the YouTube video of I think it's the New York Jets. They had a motivational speaker come in, and he was an educator, and he gave all the football players a poker chip, and they just kept using the words all in, all in, all in. And they won the Super Bowl the year that they did that. And so they went from like losing, and it's this crazy story. And so it's the same mindset we have to have as a district leader. Once we do the implementation, we have the strategies, we talk about it, we remove the barriers, all the things that are there. We have to be all in. And what does that look like? And that's what I love working with organizations and schools to identify what does this look like? How do we roll this out? And how do we make it happen? Because it can't be in isolation and it can't be in silos. It has to be an effort, because what's going to happen is it's going to transform culture where outcomes are going to improve, retention's going to improve, and it's going to be a space where people not only want to be, but people are going to thrive.
That makes sense. This one's interesting. It's only a school counselor question I've ever had. It just says trauma and inequity. How can kindness initiatives go hand in hand with restorative practices and social emotional learning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love it. I think social emotional learning, we have to help kids regulate their emotions, right? We have to help them get into a regulated state. I share often that when I was a middle school administrator, I would have students who would come into my office who were in distress. And we know that oftentimes conflict or distress comes from lack of communication or lack of clarity in communication. And so I would have students write 18 affirmations about themselves, and then we would come back together. One, that helps them regulate their body and their mind and their nervous system. But two, what happens is I have the two students share their affirmations with one another. And what we identify is there's a lot of similarities and ways in which we can connect, oftentimes that we don't think that we can. And so it begins that process. Is it perfect? No. Do they leave out best friends? No. But it doesn't give us a starting point to have us begin to build that bridge. All my B's there got mixed up. And so I think that's a great way to help kids regulate themselves. And we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful that students have trauma. You agree with it or disagree or whatever our philosophy may be, it's there. And the research is also sharing that after the pandemic, if students process information on technology that they did not internally process, they're coming to school on an ACE scale of 1 to 10 with 4 or more traumatic experiences. So I think kindness is the through line for connection, for how we talk about ourselves to ourselves. And it's that embedded approach of how we teach it. I think we have to get back to teaching the soft skills of integrity, trust, problem solving, because that's shifted as a society as we moved away from that play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood. So there's a collective responsibility, but I appreciate the intentionality of that, the school counselor asking, hey, how do we embed this to make it happen? And like I shared, there's lots of resources to do that on my website. Happy to guide anyone through that, but they do go hand in hand in lockstep.
We'll link those in the description of all the videos. This is a good one. How do we measure kindness or recognize kindness without reducing it to points, charts, or tokens?
I love that. That is It's a great question because it's
Because
not
when I think about it, throughout my childhood, any kind of expression of kindness was like, did I get worms in my apple or like something
that.
that? Yeah.
Well, and think about too, like when we have kids who are compliant, we celebrate their compliance, right? Like, oh, they got the A or they did whatever. What I think we have to shift, because this is the biggest thing that you go back to one of the questions you asked at the beginning. What are Gen Z and Gen Alpha trying to tell us? What they're trying to tell us is so long that they don't need adults necessarily to help them get information. They have access to information at their fingertips. What we can do to help embed kindness, not to be a points or a chart or a sticker or like you said, the worms in my apple, it is that celebrating innovation, letting kids have creative ideas and creating that space to allow them to thrive and to flourish in that space. But if they fail, not honing in on that, but helping them see that as a opportunity to come back, right? How can we build upon this to be better? I think when we're creating that culture of cohesion and community, we're listening to students. What's working? What's not working? Getting their voice. I know a lot of teachers don't necessarily want to give surveys, but hearing students' voice is so powerful, whatever that may look like, because it's not a dictatorship. It's a community of unity. We're all in there together, learning together and working together. And so it's when we treat one another with respect, and you can tell, you're going to be able to walk in that classroom and tell, is there kindness here or is there not, right? Like it's pretty cut and dry. But when we do those things, that's how we know that kindness is there. So it's not one more thing. It's not a fluff sticker, chart, rainbow, but it really is these intentional things that we're doing in our classrooms to ensure that kids are connected and that we really do have a kindness culture.
Next one's so good. I'm going to save it for the end. What's a way we can take the kindness from the classrooms, and as parents, we can continue that good work that maybe starts in the school and ritualize that at home?
I love it. I love that so much. I think one of the things I love about the parent workshops that I lead is helping parents understand this generation. As a millennial, they are different than I am, right? And so we have to be mindful of that. But I think when we can help set guardrails and intentional time to connect with our young folks, whatever that may is really powerful. There's a friend of mine who's a speaker and she's a parent, but Katie Kinder, the teal glasses lady here in Oklahoma City, she's great. She's totally great. She talks about how she has 2 teenagers, and when they have dinner, they would sit at the table and they would have conversation starters that they would pull out of the cup and they would read them and say, let's talk about it, right? No phones, no devices. And I think if we can do small things like that, I recognize people are working tirelessly to provide for their families, 2 and 3 jobs. And so dinner may look a little bit different than what it probably did 30 years ago, but I know there are times throughout the 24 hours we're all given that we can intentionally carve out 5 or 10 minutes to connect with our young folks to say, listen, we're gonna pull out some starters, we're gonna talk about some things, because then that way too, the child is seeing a compassionate, understanding, empathetic parent, has another adult connection. Like all of those moving pieces are so powerful for that extension beyond the classroom or the school.
Really interesting one. It's a rural community perspective, so that's like helpful for me. I'm like the fake person who submitted my own question here in a town of 2,000 people, but it says everybody knows everyone. Kindness can feel complicated. How do we handle situations, conflicts, and grudges in the work environment where we have to practice kindness for our students?
Wow,
I like
that's
that.
admirable. I like that.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it though.
I do like it too. So I too grew up in a rural community, as I shared, on the farm. So I know what it's like to live in a small town. And you're right, it is hard, right? There, everyone knows everyone. Made me think of that country song too. Everyone knows everybody. But like I shared, so many people who need kindness will often show us in the most unkind ways. And we have to let go of what happened the day before. And we can't predict what's going to happen in the future. We have to live in the present. That's the hardest thing. Because as humans, as I shared, we're wired for control. We want to control the other person. We want to control their actions. We want to control what they do. But the theory is we have to let them, and we have to choose to be the light for ourselves, choosing our own thoughts, our own actions, and our own choices. And so I always say, if people drain your energy, get away from them, get away from the energy vampires. And that's not being rude or selfish. That's being kind to your mind. Boundaries are kind. Saying no is kind. And I think for so long in a world in which we've been encouraged to people please or to comply with whatever other folks have been telling us to do, we have shifted this perspective that saying no and boundaries and all this is selfish. It's not. It's a form of self-kindness. And that's what we have to choose for ourselves. So you can still live in a small town. You can still be kind to folks as you see them, but you don't have to hang out with them and be their best friend. You want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who light you up and fill you up.
I struggle with saying no in a positive way, and I need to, because like I always just want to give and give and give, and then can't do it. Um, we'll get to that really good question here and after this one. Let's see. How do we use technology to spread kindness, not just post positive experiences? How can we do that in a unique way?
Yeah, I think there's tons of ways in which you can leverage like social media, of course, is a great way to spread that positive ripple. There's an organization called Doing A-OK that is trying to launch 1,000,000 random acts of kindness in the latter half of this year. So by 2026, they're trying to have 1,000,000 acts of kindness recorded. So I think if schools or organizations were looking for that, that'd be a great way to begin to spread that ripple. I think about things that you can do with AI to create platforms. I think about the Canva creations that you can launch with AI to do innovative projects with students. You can use Google Suite products or I mean, there's so many ways you can leverage AI to help kids capture and have a reminder. What I think what we're so good at, and I'm speaking myself as we there, the collective we, is doing something and it being one and done. And what I'm trying to focus on this semester is not only building upon things that we have done content-wise, but having students re-access those things so they can recall what they shared throughout the semester and see how their perspective or their learning has shifted so that it's that continuation. And I think that's one thing we can do with, well, I'm going to try. We'll see what it looks like this semester with gratitude, mindfulness, and that reflection piece at the end of the lesson to say, what did I learn about myself? What did I learn about how I was feeling through this process, right? To make it more intentional. So it's not applicable just to the school day, but it's also applicable to real life.
Perfect. The leads into this one. What's a real life example you've seen of a student exhibiting kindness that's changed school culture?
So I always tell this story that this one, it's hard, but gives me chills and it's a good one. So I was a school culture and climate specialist in a district here. And right before Labor Day, the assistant superintendent was going to move me back to a middle school where I was an assistant principal. And so I thought to myself, how did I manifest this to myself? How am I going back to where I was? And the school had used over 800 days of suspension in the first 4 weeks of school. It was really low. I mean, just all the problems you can think of. I literally saw kids swinging from the rafters when I walked back in the building. And I was like, holy Toledo, like what is this? And so I know that when we look for problems, we can find problems. But as Mel Robbins tells us, when we look for hearts, we can find hearts. And so I decided to launch what I called the 7th grade student of the week. And I remember, and it was a theme, right? I would give student gift cards and I would give them a certificate trying to make a theme of 7th grade, $7, trying to do like a thing to bring excitement around it. And I remember one week the teachers had recommended the student named Derek. And Derek was such a frequent flyer to my office. I mean, he probably get round trip tickets on Southwest. It was so frequent he was there. And his mom and I texted on the regular, and the teachers recommended Derek one week for student of the week. And I was like, there's no way in hell this kid's getting this award. Like, there's no way. And as I went home that night, I thought that's not fair. They're seeing moments of brilliance and excitement that he's doing in the classroom, that he's shifting his behavior. And I'm only dealing with the sides of which that are really extreme, that can't be classroom managed. And so when I came back to the school the next day, I went to the teachers. I said, you're right. He is the student of the week and we're going to do this. And so when I went in the gym that day and I recognized him, he was shocked, to say the least. And you could see tears in his eyes when I called his name. But I asked him to take a picture with me, and I sent the picture to his mom, and she was over the moon. And I share that because that kid's behavior changed. That kid's behavior, was it perfect? No, I'm not going to sit there and say it's perfect. Did he have less frequent flyer miles? Absolutely. But it's because sometimes a kid needs a chance to shine, and some need a second, third, and fourth chance to shine. And it's our responsibilities as adults. We are the dealers of hope and belief. We are the ones that get to recognize students for their innovation, their progress, and their whole journey. And so I saw that moment where teachers saw just a small ounce of light in that kiddo and wanted to pour into him. And it shifted the entire experience and started to change our culture, because those kids who need attention the most often show us in the most unkind ways.
That's interesting. The showing in the most unkind ways. We also talk about like mental health, the person who's in distress. They always talk about, like the Robin Williams, he was laughing, the whole room was lit up, and it was the day before. Like, it's interesting how when we cry for help, it's usually in the opposite way. Yeah. Before we close, what's the one unconventional, or is there even an unconventional truth about kindness that you could leave educators, leaders, learners, listeners with?
I don't know if there's an unconventional truth. I think the piece that we have to remember is that when we are kind to somebody else, they're 75% more likely to be kind as that ripple, right? So it all starts with us. It fosters belonging, it increases motivation, and it reduces stress. And so I think if there's anything that could be the solution to a lot of the things that we're carrying in our invisible backpacks and on our shoulder, is choose kindness. It's not a personality trait. It's a choice you make every single day to be kind to your mind and to be kind to ripple out in the world.
It's something that I really like. One of our partners saying here is global mental health movement. And Eric, their founder, he said something that really blew my mind. We always talk in terms of how much is on my plate and can I remove this and that from my plate or reshuffle things. And he's just like, well, what if your plate is cracked?
Right.
It doesn't matter how much you reshuffle and take on or off. And it's kind of a similar thing there with the backpack. It's if the backpack has a tear in it, it doesn't matter how you try to store the gear or rearrange it or tighten things down. It's not
Yes.
going to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, like if we have a second for one quick story. I will share that there's an activity called I Wish My Teacher Knew, and I've talked about it for years, and I did it when I was in the K through 12 classroom, and then I stopped when I got into leadership. But last semester I launched it again, and I started it with I Wish My Students Knew. So I vulnerably told my students about all the things, and then they wrote back to me saying I wish my teacher knew, and the stories that these kids told me, looking at them, I would have never known. And so that's been one of the biggest pushes that I've encouraged not only teachers to do with students, and that can look at a wide range for pre-K through 12, but I encourage leaders to do that with their colleagues and to do that with their staff, because it's that piece that, like you share, I love the visual you shared, that when you have a rip in your backpack, no matter how you readjust the gear, something's falling out, right? So think about when folks are coming to our spaces, bringing their best versions of themselves, but they got this backpack. If we would just seek to understand and do activities of that, we'll be able to work together and connect to understand that we're all carrying.
What's the best way for somebody to bring kindness to their community, school, classroom, business?
Well, first off, you need the kindness tour. So I'd love to be. But if you are looking to just start into launch, choose kindness for yourself and become the ripple and just keep saying yes and leaning into it. If you need the guidance, need support, need all the things, I'm here. I love it. I am all about the science of kindness. I'm a kindness advocate on the kindness tour. Can't stop saying kindness enough. And so I'd love to help anyone that believes in this work and wants to bring kindness into the space.
Start the ripple, folks. Dr. Culver, thank you for sharing your story and spirit with us. I like interviewing you. It's always a good laugh. Everybody visit orangesparrow.org. We'll put links below in the description for social media. Follow him on TikTok and Instagram. He's like a superstar on TikTok. And, as part of Thinkering Collective and everybody listening, this is your invitation. We're always looking forward to talking, humanized learning, however we can connect and help. Here to do that. And until next time, everybody out there, keep thinking, keep tinkering, and keep thinkering. And most importantly, lead with kindness.
Love the term thinkering, and we'll definitely use it in my classroom. The kids will love it.
This is where we can be that peer support network with each other. When the big picture clicks, it's beautiful when you get administrators and teachers together.
You can't be a leader of other people if you can't first lead yourself, right?
Help the educator have a very clear and structured framework.
Becomes this real community hub. If you're a great educator, you're looking for the most powerful moment. Can we inspire kids to believe that the world needs who they were made to be?
I hope you guys continue to uphold that legacy and continue, finding kids like you.